Ernest Hemingway called Jesus' story of the prodigal son the greatest story in all of literature. I call the parable of the father and two sons in Luke chapter 15 my fave. Listen to how it begins. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had two sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of the country, who sent him to his field to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. Pause here and try retelling this part of the parable to someone. I'll wait. What did you focus on? What did you miss? What did you hear? What was the downfall of the younger son? In 2008, I read Mark Allen Powell's book, What Do They Hear? Bridging the Gap Between Pulpit and Pew, including his report of a cultural experiment he ran. When Reverend Powell asked his seminary students to retell this part of Jesus' parable, he noticed all mentioned how the son wasted his property. No one mentioned the famine. As he pulled a larger sample of Americans, he found only 6 out of 100 noticed or remembered the famine. Did you notice the famine? He tried the same exercise in Russia. 86 out of 100 remembered and focused on the famine. 16 thought the son's individual actions led to the pigsty. I guess Russians have a different experience with famine. Are you curious about whence that perspective comes? When Powell shared the same story in Tanzania, their focus began with the surprise that any child would isolate from family. Rather than his responsibility of wasting property or the famine beyond his control, they most remembered that no one gave him anything. In their culture, the downfall of this story was the community not caring for a person's needs. They were shocked that any group of people would ignore someone's need, regardless of whether it arose from a personal action, natural disaster, or immigrating from a distant country. The carol, "Do You Hear What I Hear?" rings in my ears. The answer is, you do not hear what I hear. I'm not saying I'm ready for Christmas music, although I may wish to hasten the end of 2020. I guess that's why the first question I often ask after a sermon or Bible study or ethical discussion or our current confirmation class is, what did you hear? There's no wrong answer. You heard what you heard. I am curious about the response as I care about the person. What do you hear? What is your focus? How does your focus determine what you miss?